This is Wade, and you are in Wade World. Today, we're going to go further back in time. If you've been following Wade, you know that Wade has been following what kind of world are we living in? We're living in a world of money loving, worshippers of child sacrificing gods. And where did these guys come from? You can call them girly men, the enemies of mankind, a lot of Jews, right? So we have been on a journey tracing their power back into the 17th century when they started killing off the monarchs in Europe to destroy the currency, install central banking and permanent income tax. Then we went back to the gods that they worship: Moloch, Yahweh, Baal, El Elyon, and Sumerian gods like Enlil and Enki. And now we're going to go further back in time, because going back in time and understanding that these people worship gods, that they choose to worship gods who demand, especially Moloch, tortured baby sacrifices, not just child sacrifices, not just virgins or young men, but tortured baby sacrifices, like burnt alive or tortured. So we come up to the question like, okay, who are these gods? And if you've been looking at the videos, if not, you should, Wade's old videos, these gods must be advanced beings who designed humanity. So now we come into the question of, all right, the last great flood, we know now through geological evidence, was 12,500 years ago, which almost all religions, whether they are Nordic, Aztec, Indian, Chinese, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, Christian, Roman, Russian, they all talk about a great flood, the world was flooded, and out of the flood, the gods built these things and that things. And there's always a man, even in Indian mythology, Wade didn't know this, that the man built a boat and he was helped by the gods. In Indian mythology, it was apparently a submarine, which makes you think that maybe the other boats were not boats, but more like submarines that floated below the crazy waves. So a couple of feet below the crazy waves, the sea would be calmer in a storm, right? That's why they're all like waterproofed and stuff. So we come back to the question of what if there were ancient civilizations, and the two civilizations that we come across again and again in various writings are the civilization, the lost continent of Mu, and Atlantis. Interestingly, they both destroyed in historical records. They were destroyed in historical records in the same way. In one night, earthquakes and a flood. So there can be a couple of reasons for this. Maybe they were the same civilizations being described. Maybe there were different civilizations being described across different times. Or maybe, just like we have mutually assured destruction by nuclear weapons, they used some kind of weapons that were so powerful that they mutually destroyed each other. Because it's eerie how similar the destroying story is. And of course, there might be just one civilization, but the description of the people is quite different. Atlantis was a very white civilization, and Mu is described as a very black civilization. Skin color and associated physical features. Right. So we're going to explore that, and in this video, we're going to share this video, and if the audio cuts out, Wade is going to then fix the feed and come back. Now, we might share the audio tab as well and see what effect it has, but this starts off with the Silurian hypothesis.
Tell the story. But before we answer that, where did the name Silurian come from? Years ago, in the third and shortest period of the Paleozoic era, scientists believed that life existed in Earth's oceans. However, there was zero evidence of intelligent life. To add to that, astrophysicist Adam Frank and climate scientist Gavin Schmidt thought it would be nice to pass a wink to Doctor Who. Remember that sci-fi series where...
What this is that there were not only advanced civilizations before us, there were non-human advanced civilizations before us. And Doctor Who refers to this. People, the reptilians, who say, yeah, we were here before you guys. We have a claim to this planet, which makes sense. But the problem is that scientists have said that today, if something happened and all humans died out, our civilization's vestiges and the evidence of our civilization will be gone in a couple of thousand years. And we're talking about civilizations that are possibly millions of years old, the Silurian hypothesis. And these two scientists, they said the only thing that would be left after millions and millions of years would be chemical composition of the Earth's crust and discrepancies in it. Fascinatingly, Scientists have recently found industrial chemicals, industrial metals, and their signatures in 125 million year old Earth. Just imagine you've been told human beings are 300,000 years old, our technology is like 7,000 or 12,000 years old, but there were people, our species living 25 million years ago. That's like 450 times older than we are, right? If we take it as, well, if you take it as 300,000, then it would be more like 150. For 450 million years, and then about what? We're looking at 30 something, or 40, 41.5 or something like that, right? So anyway, we are going to not explore too much of the Silurian hypothesis. It's fascinating, but it's interesting to go through it, that scientists are finding out that not only have there been multiple civilizations on the planet, but we've forgotten about them, and something cataclysmic happens to all of them. Who knows? Maybe we were even on Mars.
The fictional Silurians were an advanced reptilian species that lived before humans. Yes, that's them. Combining the idea of whether an ancient civilization lived before humans, plus the theory of life existing in the far Silurian period, the Silurian hypothesis began to make sense.
This land is ours. We lived here long before the apes.
But Frank and Schmidt's paper didn't stop there. Their thought experiment explored whether such ancient civilizations left any recognizable traces of their existence. Their conclusion, that they could erase all physical evidence of an ancient society. Frank and Schmidt argued that instead of looking for a smoky Silurian picture or any other absurd physical proof, we better start searching for chemical fingerprints in the Earth's crust. And for a generation of humans with trust issues,
So this is the Silurian hypothesis. This is going far back, and we're not going to delve into this right now because we are going back in time in steps. So we have reached about 8,000 years ago, Mesopotamia. Now we're going to push back before the Great Flood. So about 12,500 years ago and before that. This is millions of years ago. But it's fascinating, and you should definitely look into it. So we're going to go and see what Mu was. Because there is a lot of conjecture in this video also, the dinosaurs, the technology. Well, dinosaurs also look like giant chickens, so maybe not. But let's go to Mu. Who's this? Get the fuck out of here, man. Do some workouts. Fat fuck. All right. So
slime mold and a sugar cube in a maze. At first, both entities were at the far ends of the maze.
we're talking
In a few
about
hours, the mold grew its threads through the maze,
mold.
searching and rerouting itself until it reached the sugar. Human civilization. Because this time, it was not about Atlantis or ancient Egypt, nor was it about Mesopotamia. It was about a continent that came before these civilizations, a lost world called Mu, and it all started with a man called Augustus Le Plongeon, a 19th century archaeologist who spent his career studying Mayan ruins. He was known for arguing about how the Yucatan civilization was older than Egypt, but no one expected this archaeologist.
So what's interesting is that Plongeon and Churchward, the British archaeologists, they uncovered same patterns in widely different areas. This guy uncovered Mayan and Aztec ruins, where he said there was a lost continent of Mu that was a very advanced civilization. This is South American pyramid. And then Churchward was stationed in India during the British Empire's occupation of India, and he befriended a priest over many years, gained his trust. And the priest had access to tablets which were written in a language that only two other priests in the entire subcontinent could read. And Church said that I'll help you restore the tablets if you help me read them. And the priest was like, all right. He had to be convinced, but he taught Church that, and Churchward was like, wow, all of this is describing a lost continent of Mu. So he and Plongeon came to the same conclusion by completely different means in different locations. And interestingly, the tablets of the Mayans and the Indians have a lot in common. So we're going to go through the story.
It was unlike anything Churchward had ever seen. The priest brought out stone tablets that looked old. On these tablets, there were written messages in a language that was too complex for Churchward to decipher. According to Churchward, the tablets were sunburnt, and although they looked like stone on the outside, they were built with clay. The language in the tablets was called the Naga Maya language. This was a long-lost language understood by only two other people in India at the time. But Churchward was interested in interpreting the message on these tablets, so he made a deal with the priest. Teach me the dead language, and I will restore and store the tablets for you. At the time, James Churchward was also known for properly storing ancient artifacts. This seemed like a good bargain to his friend, the priest. And once this deal was settled, Churchward began a difficult journey to unravel what was written on the stone tablets. When he did understand them, he wrote in his book that the tablets originated from the place where man first appeared, Mu. But that was not all. The world was not ready for the detailed description that would emerge from Churchward's understanding of the Naga Maya language on the tablets. The story on the tablets kicks off with the creation of planet Earth Mu and the superior human civilization that lived within. The people of Mu were called the Nakal, and of course, Churchward had a vivid description of their existence. According to the writer, Mu was a continent that flourished between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago as a real world.
So the Nakal is what we're talking about. Mu. This is a huge continent between America and Asia, the Pacific that is empty, there was a huge continent there. And again, we come back to they were designing human beings were designed here. And
where was Mu located?
a lot of the themes of this is that this was maybe advanced civilizations, beings who came and genetically engineered human beings and then bred with them, and they were destroyed for breeding with human beings. Same with Atlantis. So it seems that if we look at them as gods, right, they come from a mother planet, mother civilization, and that civilization really doesn't want them breeding with human beings. Understandable from their perspective. And after multiple warnings, if that doesn't stop, they just kind of destroy the entire continent and sink it between the waves. That's some planet-destroying level of advancement that we do not possess yet. We can't explain how an entire continent, Mu and Atlantis, can disappear beneath the sea in one night. And it always starts with earthquakes, and then it disappears beneath the sea.
Mu was completely obliterated in almost a single night. Wait, what? We were just shocked. Churchwood claimed that Mu faced a sudden series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Amid the disarray, the broken land fell into that great abyss of fire, and so it sank and was covered by over 50 million square miles of water. In one night, the great mother civilization that birthed ancient Egypt and other known civilizations had crumbled.
So again, this is either mutually assured destruction between Mu and Atlantis, or the people who are the progenitors and the advanced civilization that we call gods who came here and designed us, their mother planet saying, yo, we don't want you breeding with what you designed, stop it. And they didn't stop it, and those guys were like, all right, we're just going to destroy your experiments and you. By literally earthquakes, volcanic explosions, sink beneath the waves of flood. This looks like a very, very advanced planet-destroying weapon. Because if it can sink an entire continent in a night in the same exact way, right? Earthquakes, volcanoes, pit opens, sinks into the pit, covered by water. That's another level of technology altogether. And we have evidence of it.
The area deduced to be occupied by the Mu civilization had monuments that showed evidence of their existence. It made sense too. If Mu was real and as advanced as Churchwood believed, then its people would have left behind traces of their knowledge. And they did leave traces bold enough to let us question all we believed about the true creation of mankind.
Interestingly, also, the Mariana Trench, the deepest place in the ocean floor, is in the Pacific Ocean. So not only did they destroy Mu, they did a brilliant, damn good job of it. Now we're coming over towards more of what other somewhat clues that these people left. And think about it, right? If the world were destroyed today and only a few hundred human beings were left, what is the probability that a lot of them will be structural engineers or scientists capable of making advanced material? They'd have general knowledge, but that general knowledge to a very backwards people would look like godly knowledge. Like they would have a general knowledge of making a wheel, of maybe growing some food, or maybe making some elementary machines. But it's also important that this civilization was advanced enough to realize that your technology, whether it's on paper or electronics, if we told you that you should write ABCDE on a clay tablet or granite, you'd be like, why? That's stupid. We have computers. Well, computers won't survive long term. Neither will paper. But you know what will survive over thousands and thousands and thousands of years? Really hard rock, granite, and specially treated clay, stuff like that. So you don't think about preserving your civilization, but these guys are like, you know what? We should do that just in case something happens to us. And that's why we're talking about them. So this is going to a little bit of a theme about a lot of times throughout history, we see human beings have this tendency of just claiming shit that they didn't make. Like the Egyptian pyramids, the Aztec pyramids, temples in India, these things. Oh, we made, our ancestors made it. Really? How'd you make it? Make it today. We can't. We lost the technology. Really? You have advanced materials technology. You're building cities and skyscrapers. Why can't you make this old shit? Trust me, bro. We need to stop bullshitting ourselves and be like, don't just claim this amazing thing that you saw. Actually start asking and like, hey, we've seen this amazing thing. We haven't built it. Somebody else claimed they built it. Say, all right, build it again. If they can't, then, say like, all right, who built it? Because we did. But now we're going from Mu to Atlantis, and Atlantis's description, excuse the interruption, Atlantis's description is much more detailed. And we can think of this, there might be a couple of reasons for this. If Atlantis is much more recent, and it was destroyed maybe about 13,000 years ago, whereas Mu was destroyed 60, 70, 80,000, 400,000 years ago, we will definitely have more evidence of what Atlantis was like than what Mu was like. And this video is going to go into detail. Plato wrote it as a play, Timaeus and Critias, where he described Atlantis. But the fact that Plato described 2,500 years ago things that we know today are possible in the future in science fiction is mind-boggling. And the detail in which he describes Atlantis is mind-boggling as well. Like, how did this dude know? If he's just describing some stuff he made up in his mind, how did he know? And a lot of people say Plato knew this was true, but he knew if he just came out and said things about Atlantis, people would call him crazy. So he made it a play, like, oh, it's a play. Kind of somewhat reminds you of H.P. Lovecraft. A lot of his visions talk about ancient civilizations and mind displacement across forwards and backwards across time, right? Civilization that could change and swap their minds and jump from time to time. And their whole purpose was to, gather all the knowledge across all the ages. And there's one story where the professor in the middle of a lecture gets mind displaced back to being a 10-foot tall Rugos cone, millions of years in the Earth's past, maybe billions. And that being lives in his body for a couple of years, then swaps. But they mess up and he starts remembering this past experience, right? So now we're going to go into Atlantis. And you'll see even in Atlantis, there is this theme of the gods breeding with human beings. And apparently this is really frowned upon, which again, way to understand. Like, it's like having a child with AI. Why would you? Human beings would be pissed. We'd be like, yeah, why can't you have children with your own kind? What's wrong with you?
They were said to have divine or wise beings with knowledge deeper than what a primitive civilization should have possessed. Now it seems like Mu is not just home to humans, but something more, a hybrid civilization perhaps. But if this was true on any plane, there is a horrific likelihood that awaits any human willing to explore this trail of thought. Some theories suggest that if extraterrestrials did visit Mu, they had one goal in mind, to intervene with humanity. After all, ancient texts keep making references to divine beings being the source of humanity or modifying humanity.
And this is something that WAYDE is referencing again, right? Human progress is in fits and starts across centuries. Like Nikola Tesla came up with Wardenclyffe Tower to send energy wirelessly 12,500 years after Atlantis fell. And the pyramids might just be an inferior version of the actual piezoelectric crystal electricity generation, electric water generation, seismic stabilizers, environment purifying technology they used. So, is that blood still running among us? And it's so few, and it gets so few chances that it takes hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years before that blood shows itself in ideas that are so far advanced that even today, Tesla's inventions cannot be replicated. In fact, the company Tesla is running on a 137-year-old motor. And that's the most futuristic motor we have. So we're going to go ahead.
Inhabitants and a thriving livelihood within. Moreover, the Pacific Ocean floor has been extensively mapped. There is no evidence of a massive lost landmass beneath the waves.
That's the
Even plate
important
tectonics,
question, right?
which
James
is the process by which
Cameron
the
is
Earth's
the
crust
only
shifts,
guy,
makes it impossible for a continent as
one
large
of
as
the
the size of
few
Mu to suddenly
private
disappear
guys
without a
who
trace.
actually
Then there are the
privately
Natal
mapped
tablets
it,
discovered by James
or traveled
Churchward.
it,
The ancient
but
records that he
it's
claimed told the story of Mu.
extensively mapped by whom?
The problem is that
By
no one
the
ever saw these tablets
government,
besides
by the
Churchward.
people who
He never provided the
sacrificed,
tablets for secondary analysis. Because of this,
babies
no
to
other
their
researcher could confirm their existence.
7,500-year-old
Without the tablets,
advanced
the entire
god.
story of the Mu
Maybe
civilization
this
is built on an
advanced god
unverified claim.
is
But it doesn't
one
end
of
here.
these beings who's
Linguists
like, you
also
know what? I'm going to help you out with my advanced tech, but I want you to do something really fucked up to show how devoted you are to me. By these governments, they map the Pacific floor, and you think they're telling us the truth? The probability is quite low. The probability is quite low.
Perhaps there is. Although scientists and historians dismiss Churchward's claims of Mu being a lost continent that founded human civilization, some researchers believe that there could be an iota of truth behind the legend.
All right, we're going to go to...
Did Plato say about Atlantis? In his words, in the days of old, the gods had the whole earth distributed among them by allotment. But Poseidon, receiving for his lot the island of Atlantis, begat children by a mortal woman, and settled them in a part of the island which I will describe. And when he finally...
So this is fascinating. This theme keeps recurring, right? They design human beings and then they fall in love with them and have children with them, right? Even if they don't fall in love with them. And that's really frowned upon.
He described the land. The history world was thrown into chaos. Here is why. Plato described a civilization too advanced for humans to comprehend. In no time, his words resembled the script of a science fiction movie. Take a look. Plato wrote, the most famous of them to other islands and to a great ocean. And within the pillars, the empire of Atlantis reached in Europe to Tyrrhenia and in Libya to Egypt. He didn't stop there. In further texts, Plato revealed that the knowledge of Atlantis was passed down to him from Egyptian ancestors 9,000 years ago. The Greek philosopher outlined that Atlantis was so advanced that it rivaled human civilization, and this was just too much to take in.
So think yourself, think of yourself as the pinnacle of human civilization, right? And somebody comes and tells you, you guys are nothing, you guys are primitive tribal people compared to what we had. You'd be pissed immediately. You'd be like, how dare you say that, right? And Plato, we're going back in sources 9,000 years ago. That's 3,500 years closer to the Great Flood that has been proved now. So we're getting closer and closer to the truth. We are going past the Sumerian gods, right? We're going past all the claims that they had that they were gods. And we're going to the last Great Flood and the civilization that came before it.
This great Atlantis had a mystical end to it. Scholars began to argue that this civilization may be more than the fable that many think it to be. What if it did exist and met a catastrophic end?
Apparently, you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a
single...
single...
We're going to do a very, very interesting thing in this video, which is that they walk through a day in the life of Atlanteans.
Not talking about the mythical kingdom of cartoons or sci-fi, but the real Atlantis was described by Plato as a high-tech allegory. But according to Plato, we see something different when he writes about the civilization's demise. But after violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all the warlike men in a body sank into the earth. The island of Atlantis, in like manner, disappeared in the depths of the sea. There was Atlantis, and then there wasn't. How can such a detailed account be swept under the carpet as a mere myth? The answer is that it can't, because deep in the sands of time, beneath ancient ruins and in the DNA of mysterious megaliths, clues are emerging. Clues that suggest Atlantis may have been a real place. Not just that, but proof that its people weren't amateur primitive survivors, but something far more advanced. Now, we're not just asking, did Atlantis exist? We're asking something more daring. What would it feel like to live there?
And it's fascinating.
Imagine you were one of them,
this universe,
an Atlantean citizen in the final days before the flood destroyed the city. How would it be? According to Plato, there is quite a list of activities. You'd walk under domed temples pulsing with crystal-powered energy, float through aerial transport systems far beyond our current technology, eat foods enhanced by frequency-based agriculture, heal diseases using sound and color, and what's...
Eat food advanced by frequency-based agriculture, electrified water. What did Wade say? Maybe the last video got wiped out. In Egypt, the pyramids are said to be electricity generators, electrifying the water around them, which made plants grow bigger and stronger, people grow taller and stronger and superior, and the whole land become more fertile. In fact, there is a smaller researcher who drinks water from the Serapeum in Egypt, and that cured myopia, which he had since birth. And that is water that isn't even being actively electrified, but there are some hidden processes that are still electrifying it. In fact, in Egypt recently, we found structures beneath the pyramids that are like transformers, literal electricity generation machines, and they keep trying to suppress this information. Probably why Egypt is getting paid billions of dollars by Americans. Not only is it because they play nice with Israel, but these Israelis today are at the forefront of suppressing all this information. They want to hoard knowledge, keep it close to their chest until, again, all humanity dies and they die with it. Or maybe one of them survives and becomes the next Moloch, right? Who knows?
More, you could even study the cosmos through lenses far older than Galileo's. Sounds like science fiction, right? But it's not. These ideas come from ancient texts and archaeological discs that historians are still trying to explain or cover up. But then, something happened to disrupt this high-end tech. But before we talk about the end, let's take a trip into the forgotten world of Atlantis.
This is fascinating.
It's morning, and the sun reflects on your face. But wait, as you sit up to take in the view by your window, you realize the land looks different. The sun rises over concentric rings of land and sea.
This is fascinating. The concentric rings of land and sea is exactly how Wade imagines a perfect city to be. Is it Atlantean blood? Wade definitely has a connection to the creator about order, chaos, and balance. It's fascinating. Let's
to your left, and you see towering white walls shimmer in the light, and crystal domes hum with subtle energy. Welcome to Atlantis, a place where life is super advanced. You step out of your home, and the sight leaves you dumbfounded. Your house looks like a structure carved from luminous stone. It's not just, it also self-regulates temperature and channels ambient frequency. How crazy is that? You look at the roads.
So in Atlantis, your house actually heals you. It's actually a place of rest where you feel better when you're in it. That's fascinating.
There are no traffic jams like the rush hour in New York City. There are no frantic car horns or buzzing phones. All you see are magnetic transport pods gliding silently along invisible rails. You notice one thing. Time here flows with rhythm, not chaos. The city itself is alive, yet peaceful at the same time. Take a look at the architecture, and you'll spot something that the citizens of Atlantis style. The Atlanteans designed their urban spaces with sacred geometry in mind, streets aligning with star constellations and buildings vibrating at healing frequencies. In this land, everything is both functional and spiritual. In Atlantis, science and soul are one. Now, when you move to a new city,
streets aligning with constellations needs to be explored, because if the night sky moves very slowly over millions of years with regards to the location of the cities, then there might be a benefit to actually aligning with the constellations and the knowledge that we have lost. Again, we have gone too much into the material science and suppressed a lot of the spiritual science. And this reality is definitely more complex than just quantum mechanics, fluid dynamics, and all this stuff, right? And a lot of the things that scientists can't explain is because they choose not to go into the other side. And this research that is done by the government, which suppresses it, or if private people want to do it, they are suppressed or bankrupted.
Or travel for the holidays. The same with our little trip. You make your way to the energy hall. Like its name implies, this is the spot that transmits all the energy in the city. It's description given by Plato. You're not surprised to see the walls pounding with a violet glow. Here, massive quartz crystals channel Earth's dramatic.
This is a man who lived 2,000 years ago, and he's telling us about things that we know are possible today, but we can't make it. We know it's possible, we just can't make it. We don't have the technology, we don't have the knowledge. In fact, a lot of the people saying, oh, the pyramids were made by hammers and chisels. There are granite blocks with deep cuts that were thrown away as being defective, that we today in 2026 cannot make those deep cuts with the most advanced cutting machines available in that level of precision, at that level of precision, in that deep of a cleft. There is a very interesting granite block in the museum. They might be hiding it soon because a lot of people are noticing it, which is a long, thin cut, like some kind of cutting machine accidentally slipped and cut in the wrong place of the block and it was discarded. We can't replicate it. But yeah, the ancient Egyptians definitely, they built this. Dude, if the ancient Egyptians, as human beings, we had this technology, they'd be ruling the world. They would have such a massive head start over all the races, over all European, South Asian, Asian, East Asian, Aztec, Mayan, South American, North American. They would basically be ruling the country of Earth. It would be a planetary country of Earth. So quit your bullshit, right?
Magnetic currents powering the entire city with such accuracy. But these crystals don't just power lamps.
Small
Consciousness.
pyramids.
Sounds crazy? Wait for it. In modern science,
What's also interesting in the pyramid story is there are pyramids that the ancient Egyptians tried to build, and they look like dirt hills. They look like shit. They look like a toddler's version of what a skyscraper might be if the toddler was extremely retarded and wasn't a toddler, but like a little dumb dodo bird, right?
there is confirmation that quartz has high electrical properties. But it didn't start today. Ancient texts hint at similar crystal networks in Egypt, Tibet.
Now, with this, Wade is going to make a point, as we're going towards the end of this video, that a lot of giant and big, magnificent truths spoken from the lips of lesser men do more disservice to the truth than something else. With the example of crystals, a lot of people who talk about crystals are hippy-dippy, dumbass chicks who are pretty stupid in every other area of your life. So when these people talk to you about crystals, you're like, man, you're a fucking loser. You're talking about bullshit 99% of the time. Why should I believe you this time? A good example is if a homeless man comes up to me and he's like, you know what, the gold standard was like the best kind of currency and our currency right now is fucked up. And you'll be like, oh, get away from me, you homeless crazy guy. But emotionally and mentally, you'll always have the memory of that homeless guy ran up to me and he was talking about the gold standard being the best currency. And anybody who talks about it is retarded. However, if a very learned professor of finance and history gave a nice speech in a nice area at a nice event talking about, well, the gold standard was inflation resistant because there's only a limited supply of gold. We have lost the ability to transmute other metals into gold. We can't print gold, whereas we can print fiat currency. You'd be like, oh, Mr. Professor, you are correct. That makes a lot more sense. And then you'll tell everybody, well, I heard a very important professor talk about it. They're both right. But the homeless man comes in a package that destroys the truth by the package. And human beings are superficial. But they're both right about the gold standards. That's what happens with crystals, piezoelectric crystals and everything. A lot of the times you dismiss it because the one person talking about is this absolutely degenerate retard, probably whore that you're partying around. Oh, I like crystals. She's right. She doesn't know what she's talking about in detail, but she's right about the practical applications, right? From the mouth of fools. But again, this is why intelligent people need to step up.
And even Mesoamerica. In addition, Atlantean healers use these stones not as instruments. One step into their healing chamber, and harmonic tones flood your senses. Unlike our world today, there are no pills or washed-down orthodox medicine. How healthy would it be? If you consider their medicine superb, pause for a minute and think about what their educational system would have been like. Now we know this much. That education isn't about testing memory.
It's fascinating that they used sound waves and different colors of light to heal your body. They could also extend human lifespan and keep you looking younger longer. It all ties into the story about human beings. The king list, Sumerian king list, says some kings ruled for 72,000 years. It really ties into the story that human beings were designed to be much more superior, much more robust, much less prone to diseases, much tougher physically, mentally, just overall superior. And we were gimped. Now, were we gimped by these advanced beings for being too numerous? Maybe. They built us. But if we were also Atlanteans, that would make sense because they had the technology to continually rejuvenate you and by non-invasive procedures. So no surgery. Not any of that Jew invented surgery. Oh, we have surgery to make you look like a ghoul and make your nose smaller. No, this was like light and sound, way more advanced. It would look like magic to you. It would look like magic to you because they probably didn't have cancer. But if you did have cancer and you were transported to Atlantis, you would walk into a room, there'd be gentle light and sound, bam, your cancer is gone. Looks like magic, doesn't it? And what did that Jew say? Maybe it's not a Jew. Maybe it's an American or a British man who said any sufficiently advanced magic is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
It's about awakening potential. With the level of development in Atlantis, the school children would have been taught telepathy, sacred geometry, astronomy, and dream travel, or not.
So
Would you
let's
consider this to be a far
bring it
reach?
out there.
For an island so progressive,
You talk
schools
about
double as
words,
temples, and spiritual alignment is prioritized over rote.
which is something that Wade also wants to say. The more intelligent you are, the less words you need to talk. Wade uses words to communicate to you, but in day-to-day physical personal life, the more sensitive an individual is to the other's emotions, the more efficient the communication is because you can disregard all the words and just focus on the energy and the emotions of the other person. Now, not everybody's perceptive. In fact, maybe less than 1/100% of the human population might be this perceptive, maybe less than 1,000th or 1,000,000th. But it makes communication faster and easier. Telepathy, he's just throwing it out there. But if you can understand context and communicate via actions and expressions, it's much faster and more efficient. And it's a function of high IQ. Stupid people can't. This is just a fact. They can communicate via some dumb brute method, but so can intelligent people. They can act like dumb brutes, but they can also communicate much more efficiently. And you can call this proto-telepathy. So where did this come
Facts.
from?
Isn't this a feature that our educational system today desperately needs?
And again, this is one of
Yes.
the facts that the enemies of mankind keep pushing, right? So they're united together. They act as a hive mind, but they want you to be super individualistic. So if you have gifts, you're special. Yes, you might be special, but their specialness might come from somewhere. And if someone designed you and you have some bloodline that makes you special, that doesn't make you any less special. It just makes all of your ancestors, the people who designed you, special, part of something special. Now, if you don't want to be part of something greater, that would be anti-harmony. And that is something that nobody can fix for you. But do understand this, hyper-individualistic societies tend to be miserable, regardless of how much material wealth you have. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, you will be miserable. So Wade is not saying give up your individuality. Wade is saying find the balance between appreciating yourself as an individual and your gifts and the bloodlines and your ancestors and the fact that you might have been designed to be special. Find the balance because what you do with what you have is who you are. Right? You might be designed to be special and you might spend all day playing Fortnite on a telephone, on a cell phone, right? Or you might actually change the world. So that is you being special.
But even the beautiful educational curriculum is not the only thing we might have to copy from the Atlantean civilization. Like Plato wrote, now in this island of Atlantis there existed a confederation of kings of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island and over many.
This will make sense. If there were different kings and they escaped, they would try to restart civilization in a slightly different ways of their own. For example, if only a couple of hundred human beings were left and something came overnight and killed all of us, and these people were from different races, they would have the same sort of knowledge, but they would implement it slightly differently. Like the aesthetics of skyscrapers, for example, would be slightly different by someone who's white versus someone who's black versus skyscrapers would be a stretch for them versus someone who's brown and yellow or oriental, right? But the overall theme would be the same. The superficial decorations might be different, which would make sense if Atlantis was destroyed, but some of the kings escaped. They put their own twist on Atlantis's technology. That's why we have same stories, just told differently with different aesthetics, all the way from the Nordic countries up north to South Asia and South America down south.
Other islands also, and parts of the continent. How powerful was this civilization for it to rule over other parts of the continent? Let's deduce that from its high-end tech. In the heart of Atlantis, energy wasn't just harnessed, it was harmonized. At the city's core, massive crystalline towers stood tall like sentinels. The goal? For beauty and balance. These structures formed a vast energy grid that tapped Earth's natural magnetic field like sentinels. The goal? For beauty and
So this is what Wade is talking about. If this is the limit of their technology at that time, the apex of the technology at the time, right? The pyramids would be like a very inferior version of this technology because they have like a huge, giant, shining piece of electric crystal in the center of the city. Whereas the pyramids covered that crystal up at a much lower scale and topped it off with gold conductivity. Probably Atlanteans knew how to transmute gold. And once you know how to transmute gold, then you have to invent something like Bitcoin or something to get actually non-inflation currency. Or, currency just ceases to matter to people. But that is literally what is said. Atlantis was destroyed by greed. Greed for what? If you have a limitless energy, then what do you have greed for? Power? Maybe. Maybe it was the greed for power that destroyed Atlantis. Maybe it was a mutual war. These are the same people who got separated. Or maybe one stole from the other the technologies, and then, here we are, mutually assured destruction. Probabilities are somewhat, Wade would say 40-60. 40% mutually assured destruction, 60% that these civilizations were seeded by a more advanced civilization, and that civilization just didn't like them interbreeding with humans or doing what they were doing, so they destroyed both of them in the same way. So they're sending you a message like, yo, if you do this, we're going to destroy you in one night by breaking apart your landmass, volcanic explosion, so you're confused and scared, then subsuming you in the Earth's mantle by opening up a fiery pit, and then covering you with water so that all evidence of yours is gone in one night. Planetary destroying weapons.
balance. These structures formed a vast energy grid that tapped into the Earth's natural magnetic field. To put this into perspective, think Tesla towers, but many millennia earlier. That's not all. Atlanteans believed crystals held consciousness. When properly aligned, they became pipes for anti-gravity travel, the manipulation of matter, and even time distortion. It's clear that the features that are called fake could just...
If they're saying human beings are 300,000 years old, that means we were invented or we were designed 300,000 years ago. Something to think about.
be suppressed history. Even today, fragments of quartz-based tech and magnetic stone alignments in sites like Pumapunku and Baalbek continue to baffle engineers. What if these are the leftovers of Atlantean exports? Magnetic stone alignments.
This is an ancient stone. Don't ever believe anybody who's telling you, oh, this was made by hammers and chisels. They are retarded or they are liars. The only people who deny these facts are retards and liars. And of these, the liars are more dangerous because the retards are just ignorant, right? These are ancient stones. We don't have the technology to make this right now with these stones.
Sites like Pumapunku and Baal, but for a moment in your trip, you shift the focus language of matter. Atlantean scientists didn't build with hammers and chisels. They built with frequency. There is only one way they could have achieved that. By directing harmonic sound waves at materials, they altered density, reshaped stone, and even levitated structures. Some accounts even describe tuning forks that could lift objects.
Now, this is fascinating because
others tell of voice-activated doors.
We come back to Jews who are following their older religions, and in the Talmud it says you should tell the non-Jews what you're going to do to them and God will forgive you. So there's a movie called Stargate. It's a great movie. It has Kurt Russell in it. And it literally, the opening scene shows giant granite and sandstone blocks being levitated and being built into the Pyramid of Giza. And it's a stargate to an advanced civilization. One of the civilization's advanced beings possesses a young boy. And the masks of the gods, so the Egyptian gods, they have some dog heads, some wolf heads, some kind of beak heads, bird heads like Osiris. Apparently, they're like metallic masks that can just kind of fold down, like the Iron Man mask, like they're going to go down, up. Again, if you were living in the jungle and you didn't even know agriculture, people like that would look like gods to you. And if they never took off their masks in front of you, you would think, wow, that's an eagle-headed god. That's a dog-headed god, right? It's a great movie. You should watch it. There is some truth in there, they're trying to tell us, because it's freakish how well their depiction of science fiction in this movie aligns with what we are trying to find and we are finding right now. That harmonics was used in cutting granite and other tools to make the pyramids of Giza and the other pyramids. And these tools were not only used to cut them, but they were tools to levitate the blocks into place. Levitate the blocks into place. Because there's no way in the movies, it's like all these slaves are carrying these up the scaffolding, up the pyramids. That's not physically possible. Physics itself disproves it. It's too much. Watch the movie, Stargate.
Sonic surgeries that heal tissue without a surgical blade. Strange, right? This begs the big question. What if the Great Pyramids, the stone spheres of Costa Rica, and the H blocks of Tiwanaku were constructed using this same lost sound tech? In the 20th century, Nikola Tesla dazzled everyone with the Wardenclyffe Tower. What they didn't know is that Atlantis was already centuries ahead, powering entire cities without wires. Using piezoelectric crystals, magnetic fields, and atmospheric resonance, Atlanteans transmitted energy in an invisible manner. Light moved without bulbs. Water flowed uphill. Vehicles glided silently. The real kicker? They did this without polluting a single atom of air. This is the height that environmentalists today keep striving to achieve. But the thing is, an advanced civilization already did them millennia ago. And if by chance you get sick during your visit to Atlantis, brace yourself. They've got some healing tactics up their sleeves. In Atlantis, medicine wasn't just about curing illness, it was about restoring harmony. The Atlanteans believed disease began as a disruption in the body's frequency, so instead of pills or incisions, healers used vibration. Light, sound, and color weren't mere aesthetics like in today's world. Back then, they were medicine. Patients lay beneath domes, shaped like prisms, where beams of colored light pulsed in specific frequencies to realign chakras, mend tissues, and calm the nervous system. Today, fringe sciences like chromotherapy and bioresonance echo these ideas. But in Atlantis, they were standard practice. Can you believe that?
We come to chakras, ancient Aryan medicine, ancient Chinese medicine, and Atlantean medicine.
Violence over there isn't awkward, it's medicinal. Even the method of diagnosing
use machines for. And just like the memory that it mentioned, like the Rig Veda, oral traditions of the Nordic people, people just skate over the fact that these were oral traditions that were noted down. So that means these huge books that you see, individual humans could remember every single word of that book accurately. Oral tradition, it's just oral tradition. It's like a special class of human beings, priests, remembering entire tomes of knowledge, which comes back to the fact that human beings were designed very, very long-lived, extremely tough, superior, physically, mentally resistant to diseases, and we've lost those abilities. As we grow more mechanized, we lose the abilities. You don't try to test your memory, you use your cell phone. You don't try to test your analytical abilities, you use a computer program. This is a key to our own destruction, whereas Atlanteans, they used themselves as the machinery. And that's why they were more advanced, because they understood we have everything within ourselves. We can be supercomputers. We have to train ourselves. We don't need to depend on the spice by Frank Herbert. Man, shut the fuck up. YouTube did this. We've got people who are taking blood of younger people to stay young. It kind of works. It's not going to make you immortal. It's going to keep you fitter and healthier for longer. Now we got stem cells. But these guys just took away all of that invasive technique and said, you know what, we're going to use frequencies to keep you young forever. Something to look into. Something to really look into. Again, Wade keeps reiterating, if you don't know your past, you will never know your future. Because if we know that we have this history and these civilizations, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to find out what we lost and start on this. Now that we know that Atlanteans did this, why don't we fund research into doing this to stay alive longer? Instead of transferring your brain into a machine, use the body that you have, unlock the abilities that it had, right? But this kind of research is suppressed. This kind of knowledge is hoarded. And by hoarding knowledge, you're never going to progress as human beings, as mankind. We did a whole live stream about this. A short version of it can be found online. Of all the inventors who died with their inventions, which could have benefited mankind greatly because they were like, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money from it. Nope. Either they're killed, or they're killed, or they're killed. Or their invention is bought up and killed. So they want to be rich, and when they're not rich on their term, they get bitter and take it to the grave with them. Whereas if you release the knowledge, it helps you stay alive, my friends, and you will be rich. In fact, in this material world, Elon Musk released the designs of Tesla's motor to the world. Otherwise, he would be assassinated. They still try to destroy Tesla. Now look at him. He's probably the richest man in the world, right? Understand this, inventors. We're going to do more videos about that as well. And epigenetics is very, very interesting. Epigenetics exactly also proves that the first man a virgin girl has procreated with or has had physical relationships with will leave parts of his DNA, and every single child that comes after him will inherit parts of him. Now, what's more interesting is nobody has done the research on what happens if multiple men, she's been with multiple men, a whore, and then the last man to actually create a child with her, does he inherit a mishmash of DNA from all the degenerates that this degenerate whore has been with? Probably. We call that epigenetics. Atlanteans believed in that too. And if life can be extended by centuries, it can also be extended by millennia. Again, all of the themes that we are seeing. And we're going to end today here because there's a lot more fascinating stuff in this video, right? A lot of the themes that we are seeing right now, we are traveling back in time. Where we are in a world, it's material, chaos, degeneracy. Who rules it? Oh, when did it start getting power? 500 years ago. Before that, what happened? 2,000 years ago, the Romans and the Greeks were telling us something. What happened before that? The ancient Egyptians were trying to tell us something. What happened before that? 7,500 years ago, the Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, the Babylonians were trying to tell us something. What happened before that? 12,500 years ago, Atlantis was destroyed, and this was an advanced civilization. And we will try and push further back because right now, our knowledge of history at the forefront, the cutting edge of history, has expanded to the fact that yes, there was an advanced civilization, we've lost it. And the last known time of the civilization flourishing was 12,500 years ago. If we extrapolate that back, that means the civilization might be 50,000 years old, 70,000 years old, 300,000 years old, a million years old, millions of years old, who knows? But the vibrancy of Atlantis points to it not being millions of years old. Because if you're that advanced a civilization, right, either you're an outpost of more advanced civilization because you go out in the stars, or you just get bored. So right now, we're going to stop here at the end of Atlantis, where they had the apex of the civilization, but there was some greed creeping in, greed for power, maybe. Maybe they messed with some beings on another plane, and those beings just opened a portal and dumped a bunch of water on Atlantis, opened a portal underneath the continent, earthquakes, volcanoes, and sank it underneath. Who knows? Who knows? But they did die by greed and pride. So they also had the enemies of Atlantean mankind among them. And if we want to escape their fate, we need to plan accordingly. We can't make the same mistakes that people who were so much more advanced than us and wiser than us did, and then got killed for it. On that note, Wade is going to leave you because it's been a long, long time and they're trying to get this out to you. 3 times. Third time's the charm. But until next time, keep it cool, keep it smart, do your research, and enjoy.